The world is changing. We know this is the superhero era of films, but that can only last so long. And whenever a cash cow is tipped, the movie business enters a dangerous place where money and careers can be lost. But this time, it doesn't have to happen. I think there's another path that could be followed, which could generate just as much money, attention, and franchises without losing any time. And as you probably guessed, that path is to Los Santos for Grand Theft Auto, the movie. Now, of course, this means we're talking about video game movies, and they have been tried. But to this point, I think the attempts to make a blockbuster video game adaptation haven't quite gotten it right. There's a certain type of game you need, since some have a puzzle-solving appeal that can't transfer to film. But the right games are there, and they're basically unclaimed pots of gold. This is because of something we didn't mention last time. Besides the huge fan bases and the novelty, which made comic movies huge, and which video games have too, there's another outside appeal involved, which is coolness. We like to feel like we're part of the newest trends, and when something is everywhere, there's a tipping point where it stops making us feel original and starts making us feel unoriginal. And just like the other outside feelings, this happens no matter how good the movie might be, and it only comes back with a new direction. And if you want to do that, and have everything else you need, there is absolutely nothing better to adapt than Grand Theft Auto. Now, at the moment, I think video game movies are in the same spot that comic book movies were in the 80s and 90s. Filmmakers didn't take them seriously, and when they failed, they thought comics themselves just couldn't make for good movies. But once they started getting it right, it exploded. So much that it created a whole era of movies. And I think the movie that showed the way most was probably Tim Burton's Batman. Grand Theft Auto could be the same thing, and make $1 billion, easily, as long as it's done the right way. Now, of course, that means a good director who loves the product. But that's not enough, because the real key is that the movie has to capture the game's actual appeal to its fans. Let me explain. A while ago on this channel, we talked about the purpose of storytelling. And here it's really important because it shows you what people really want. For example, I love mint chocolate chip ice cream. Normally it's green, but if I asked you for mint chocolate chip and you gave me pistachio because it's also green, I'd spit it back at you because I hate pistachio ice cream. Likewise, just like food is about its taste, entertainment is about the feeling it gives you, not the plot or the subject matter. Those actually just help to create the feeling. When we don't realize that, we can get confused. After all, sometimes we label crime as a movie genre, but both Heat and The Naked Gun are about crime, and they're very different. Likewise, The Godfather is about crime, and Grand Theft Auto would be too. But The Godfather is actually a drama. It's about intellectual pleasure from watching people's lives change, and our Grand Theft Auto would be very different. Grand Theft Auto is no crime drama. It's an action, comedy fantasy about the most reckless and destructive criminal to ever walk the earth. Because that's the real appeal of the game. I mean, isn't it? I've played a lot of GTA games, and like everything else, what I remember about the game are the things that gave me the strongest feeling. And guess what? It's not the plot. It's the times I got 6 stars and fought the cops in the army. It's stealing a Harrier jet and flying upside down through the city because I couldn't figure out the controls. It's tanks, exploding sports cars, millions of dollars, and all the crazy stuff I did with them. So, let's break that down. Avoiding the cops and army is action, the adrenaline that comes from taking risks. Flying the jet upside down is actually satire, laughing at seeing real logic produce ridiculous results. But the part after that, stealing and destroying things, is different. And this is important. You see, to make that aspect of the movie work, we have to see it for what it really is. And people tend to get this wrong. They think it's evil, and yes, there's an element of darkness to it. What's it like to run over people with a car? Let me try. But when I play, I actually get over that quickly. And I always end up causing havoc for the same 4 reasons. Because I want to get where I'm going fast, or I see something that I want to try, or someone cuts me off or makes me angry and I want to get back at them. Or I'm just trying to avoid getting caught. Because you see, when I really thought about it, I realized that I don't actually like breaking the law. I like being able to break the law to solve my problems. So, it turns out that Grand Theft Auto is not about simulating murder and evil. It's about indulging our real-world fantasies. We actually just want to ignore traffic laws, have what we want, play practical jokes, and fight for ourselves when we feel threatened, which aren't really that bad. And when you let us do that without worrying about the consequences, it leads to all the craziness and fun that make the game great. And Grand Theft Auto's developers learned this. Originally, they had kill frenzies in the game, where you'd murder people for no reason. But as they perfected things, they removed them. You can get prostitutes in the games too, but there's no sex scenes. It's really just to laugh at the fact that you can do it. And on top of that, they added a moral element to their crime stories. The characters get forced to commit the crimes.
We'll fix the market in our favor and we'll right a few wrongs while we're at it.
Or are blackmailed or pressured by bad luck and other things. And there are no children in the game either. Along the same lines, they show consequences, since you do get arrested or die every 5 minutes. But it's done in a very specific way. Firstly, it barely interrupts the action. You're just kicked out of the mission and teleported to a new place. But the actual penalty is that you lose items, which is just enough of a bad thing to keep the threat in the action. And if you'll notice, that penalty, losing your cars and cash and guns, is bad because those are the exact things that make the fantasy fun, which shows the real appeal of the game. And now, knowing that, we can start to think big, because that appeal can definitely be put in a movie, and we can make our choices with the movie to do exactly that. So here's how. First, we'll obviously be using the general plot from the game, but it's just going to establish the hero's goals. Our best moments, our payoff to the audience, will be in how the hero accomplishes those goals. And with those, we're going to look at the crazy stuff people do when they're actually playing. After all, the most popular GTA clips online are not the story parts. They're people pulling off stunts, showing their vehicles, and fighting and trolling each other. And there's enough creativity in those for 10 movies. On top of that, while the live action might make things more intense, the absurdist humor will soften the impact of the violence. So this means we're going for a specific response from our viewers. Not leaned forward following the human drama, but leaned back, with their eyebrows up and their jaws open, and their hearts pounding over the fights and the chases, and other times laughing in disbelief over the chaos they're seeing. But it's also important that we show that chaos well, because there's obviously going to be lots of special effects. But it's important that the action in this movie feels like the real world. So besides the practical stuff, when we do bring in computer effects, we'll use a method that I think is totally underrated and would make this movie special. And that's video compositing. Video compositing is simply overlaying 2 real shots to make it look like things are interacting in a way that would be far too dangerous otherwise. And with this, you can get collisions and accidents that look shockingly real. So much so that audiences could end up wondering how we pulled off those shots. And of course, this means the believability of this is key. But that needs to go even deeper. While the movie will get totally chaotic and crazy, the source of that insanity will be our main characters. Everything and everyone else that's around and reacts to them will be kept as real as it can. This is key for the fantasy, because the point is to satisfy our curiosity, letting us see just what would happen if we were able to do these things we dream about in the real world. And that will be the source of our intellectual appeal, giving us that feeling of increased understanding that goes beyond simple violence and makes for a real and powerful experience. If you like this idea and want to see something like it, I highly recommend a movie called Falling Down from 1993.
I want breakfast.
Yeah, well, hey, I'm really sorry.
I'm really sorry too.
And if a Grand Theft Auto movie was made that could capture that same feeling with the other stuff we've talked about, I really believe it would attract the same huge audience that comic movies do now. After all, GTA is already the fastest selling entertainment product ever made. And you could then spin the movies off into the other cities of the GTA world, or do prequels with other characters, which of course would pave the way for countless other games to become movies, and put everything in place for a new, profitable, and fun era in film. Drop a comment and we can talk about which video games you'd like to see turned into movies and how they'd work. Thanks for your time. You can follow me on Twitter at StoryBrain1 and catch you later.